Blog Talk Radio.
So welcome to this, I guess, historic. It will be historic because we're taking on a platform together. Just you and I talking about some historical facts that I think are relevant. So we'd like to welcome my audience to Women Veterans Speak this wonderful Saturday here in March, and it's a beautiful day here in the DMV area. And we're just looking forward to some robust discussions on some very critical topics that we have become somewhat very knowledgeable in our experience as advocates. My name is Kathy Santos. This is our weekly radio program, Women Veterans Speak, where we have had very important discussions around military issues, the veterans, and related government matters. So today we just want to get right into our dialogue and just share with Marcina, who just given a little bit about her background that I know she would never tell. It's her historic role in advocacy that led to legislation that opened up doors for all of us women veterans today. Thank you so much for your commitment long time ago, and I will never, ever forget what that was to my life. And certainly as we continue to promote hashtag 10319 to just kind of bring that legislation to the forefront on the significance for it is today, which brings us to our discussion about some of the more significant roles of veterans in our military and how we are from all genre or backgrounds. We're just a combination of all populations. And I had the privilege of getting information about a forum, Deporting Veterans, that was led by Senator Duckworth. Of course, you know that she was wounded in Iraq and has taken on a congressional role and legislative role here in, right now in the Senate. So the Deporting Veterans community is surrounded by this university academic dialogue. So they have included legislation, ambitions with laws that they are trying to change, which stems from previous laws from the Bush administration that gave immigrants access to the military, and through that they had an expedited role to citizenship. I'd like to just invite you in to share, just give a little few minutes about yourself and how you believe that this conversation is relevant and where you would like to start with this. This is, of course, generic to the laws and the regulations, which is significant for the semantics, the language that needs to be defined for how we are kind of overlapping compassion about people being deported, but there's a significant part of the process that needs to be better defined, and we're going to try to work through some of those clarifications today. Please welcome Marcina Mundy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santos. One of the things that we have to be aware of in today, 2021, is that we need to develop community. That every veteran needs to develop a community of people to support them, because we cannot get through this by ourselves, and we need to find those key people that can help us to get through the issues that we have, because it's hard when you're just trying to figure it out yourself, but when you have established who you can talk to and who could help you to guide you, hearing another voice besides your own is a very key thing to have. In my time, after I got out of the military, that is the piece that was very effective for me, is that my community of support. Because when I got out, I was in Washington, D.C. when I got out, and I was a single parent, and there was just a group of people that rallied around me that heard about, the fact that I was disabled and I had 2 kids. And so I developed a support group that supported me. They sent me to seminars and workshops, and they helped me to understand that you are the one that has been appointed to be an advocate. And so as I began to learn about advocacy and learn about the different things, we can no longer stay silent about the issues that happen in the VA system and silent about the things that happen in the military. We cannot continue to be silent. As women of color, we need to speak up and we need to speak out. And if we collectively come together, putting aside all of whatever issues it might be, and focus on one issue, and that is to be recognized as a woman that has served, that signed on the dotted line and served her country. She is due the rights and privileges men are given. So my thing is developing community.
I would agree. I have some specific questions around that, because I want to make that part of the particular platform on deporting veterans. I think that when you're talking about the support system, these layered platforms that make it seem like there's something else going on, that we are not on the same mission. I think that for what we're trying to do to support the pathway to citizenship, it's my agenda here. We support the agenda, but I think the clarification in some of the terms, it makes it look like we are being divided, whether we're people of color, women veterans, or whatever population that needs that specific support, whether it's ethnic-based, community-based, whether they need a political agenda to legislate other issues. It overlaps. And I think some of those clarifications can be resolved with just understanding some of the definitions. I just really like to talk about, with regards to sharing that parallel, is the program that supports deporting veterans. But they're not actually deporting veterans, they're actually deporting illegal aliens. And that particular platform of support that I'm trying to engage here from women veterans, this is our perspective as women veterans. I see illegal aliens. The preferred term that they like to use today is undocumented immigrants. They're very sensitized to the term illegal. And so with regards to how that's defined, the United States Census, and all of this will be put out on my website. I put some of this information out already. The United States Census defines anyone who was not born on U.S. soil as an immigrant, okay? So the pathway to citizenship by which the argument is being made today has to do with a particular program, which is a pilot. It was a 1-year pilot program that gave immigrants, which I'm talking about any other country outside of the United States. Puerto Rico is another country. It is not a state here yet. They're seeking statehood. So the confusion about who has eligible rights to citizenship, it is those people who apply for it. There is no automatic citizenship or naturalization because of military service, unless part of that pilot program in which you grandfathered into it which a lot of these individuals have assumed that they are grandfathered in when their time has expired because the program expired. So the advocacy now to support is to give these veterans the opportunity to hear you have support. There is no attempt to dismiss you from the military or to divide us as veterans. But I think in the United States, we must have that clarity as to what we are fighting for. And it is justification and clarity. Who is it that we're fighting for, and what is it that we expect to get out of this? So women veterans, we have taken on a very early on fight. I think we have probably had the strongest advocacy platform in the country. Everybody has taken on the Women Veterans platform to somewhat connect to and to spearhead their projects or ideas of what advocacy means to them. But what it means to women veterans, it has meant that we needed to have real attention to our needs, very specific to our gynecological needs, our personal health, because it's unique for our gender. So when you're talking about populations like the deporting veterans is the term that they use, we have to be clear that it's not veterans that they're deporting. They're deporting undocumented immigrants. Once your time in service is over, you are no longer considered a resident or a workforce. You're not protected in a workforce environment through a visa, but you are no longer in any status and you must apply. And that the application process was given to these immigrants in that particular window, which is now closed. And the fight to have automatic citizenship is the fight today. They're defending that this particular program gave them that access, but it expired. So let's get this automatic citizenship as a result, and that is what the legal fight is about. So I posted the agenda that went on this week, and the recordings from the academic platform that brings the argument into the academic space for legislation to automatically give immigrants who have served in the military their citizenship. So we shall continue to watch that to see how that pans out. Can you just share a little bit, Marcina, about what it is, your understanding with regards to how these things may overlap? Did you find any conflicting roles that we play in this platform?
Well, from what I understand in asking questions, what I was informed of is that every branch of the service has its own qualifications for a non-citizen to serve in the military. So it's not even uniform. Everybody has their own, and so it just makes the situation more conflicting, because if you go to the Air Force says this. You go to the Navy says this. So it was not uniform in the beginning. So now the problem is that you have all of the things on the books, but no clarity in it. Yes. So now people are saying, okay, well, I serve, so I should have, but the clarity is the clarity. There is no clarity, and then some people know what the law is, and some people don't know what the law is. And I think it's very unfair to the one that has served in the military and to get out and say, okay, now you got to go back to your country. Yeah, they should have did some things in between time, but I think that it needs to be streamlined, and it must be clear that because you served in the military does not mean that you automatically get citizenship. And I think that there's a lot of language in there that is not clear to the general public, and it's very misleading to people. And so people are getting, very upset and excited because of the fact that they have not been told the whole story.
I agree 100%. One of the stories that really touches me is where one of the military officer was given citizenship, but he brought his daughter in. She was an adult. And he wanted that kind of to factor in his citizenship to be an anchor for her to get citizenship automatically. So that argument is, who does that citizenship apply and how does that factor in? There's a large, I'm going to say a very large platform here for bringing in all of the pieces. And I think that must be streamlined. So I want to just refer people to the website of www.census.gov, where they define these different statuses, and to, if they just Google citizenship, pathway to citizenship, the more specific, please. I would just want to let you in on that while you're thinking that. I don't want you to lose that thought.
I think that one of the problems is that even when you go on the website, you can't classify those that have served in the military along with those that haven't, because there's some parameters there that don't fit in with the person that hasn't served. So I think that that legislation needs to be changed and written to say, okay, this is what we're talking about, because there's no clarity there. And I think that it's very unfair that a person ends up getting deported and they have started a whole life here in this country, and then they're saying, oh, well, you're not a citizen. A lot of clarity needs to be done, and people need to understand that just because you served in the military does not give you the rights and privilege as a citizen. It hurts. It's a hurt piece, but we have to get clarity. There needs to be legal clarity on that.
I appreciate that. Your work with citizenship law, and that you have found that there is a platform to support the community of immigrants where there is not it's not a hostile environment. They're just trying to make sure that it is a proper and a respectful platform that says that we're going to also respect those who are waiting the 10 years. For those who come legally, there is something happening amongst the immigrant community where those who have actually gone through the process and are very proud to go through the naturalization process and to have that citizenship, there's a process in there that I'm hearing the argument, we learn things. We learn things about the culture at which they're trying to enter. I hear that many of the immigrant community, they also, as proud, patriotic Americans, they understand that this is not something that they should be given, but they earn that citizenship. So as part of the immigrant community, I've been into several immigrant courts. I actually was a part of the immigrant community through marriage, and I learned through my sponsorship of an illegal immigrant. It is quite a tedious process, so I'm not foreign to this. I don't have a prejudice against the idea of citizenship because I myself became a Chinduit. And I'm very proud of that, because what this did in this family, it created a pathway to a different quality of life, that I'm very proud to see. One of the daughters, I'm going to consider my stepdaughter, she's a medical doctor, and the kind of things that have benefited this particular family has affected the community where they're from in the Dominican Republic. So with regards to the Dominican Republic, which is not a territory, which is another argument on what exactly is a country and what exactly is a state. Yeah. The Congressman Ted Lieu says, he put an argument with another congressman that says Guam is a country, which it is. He says it's a territory, but a territory only means that the United States has somewhat ownership, and we've kind of adopted that, but they are not independent of their own governance. And what I learned very early on in working in the immigrant legislation and policy with regards to Puerto Rico, and that assumed statehood, the statehood is now being considered. I think this is before Congress now, or there is a pathway to statehood in the pipeline for Puerto Rico, as is Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, which is to not an official state. Of course, we know how we must, according to the Constitution, with regard to citizenship, it does apply to how we interact in our country. So the semantics, the legislation must be adhered to in a way where it respects everybody else, so that nobody gets ahead of the others. You know what I mean? I've never gone out of the country. I served in the military, and I never left the country. So I don't even have a passport, but I've gone to Canada. I've gone to Mexico several times. I got caught into Cuba by mistake, and off the islands down off of the Gulf. but I've never had a passport. But now I would be required to get a passport, and we need those securities post 9/11. I think it's important that we find some way to legislate not only the incorporation of immigration, but to understand what it is. There's a difference between immigration, refugees, political asylum seekers, and certainly we as American citizens. Those definitions are made for us to understand how we function in America. You see what I'm saying? And so what I hear is that people don't really understand Americans that are born on this soil. We're not immigrants as Black people. We are born here. We are not immigrants. And the argument was presented in one of my classes at the university about the status of what an immigrant and a refugee is. We are not an immigrant or refugee. We were born citizens into this country. And that argument has been shared. You are an academic. So, it is clear when we're writing our papers that it must be fact-based. So we do our research, and we want to bring this conversation to some clarity here today. And just hopefully the pathway to the citizenship will be made clear. Please, by all means, go ahead.
Another issue that is becoming very to the forefront is children born overseas and their citizenship. And there's so much gray area there. And people don't understand that if they are born in an American concern, then they are citizens. Because my daughter, who was born in Germany, has had to deal with issues about her citizenship, even though both me and her father are American citizens. But because when they asked her, where were you born? And she says, Germany, and they just immediately say, oh, well, you're not a citizen. They've even tried to keep like, well, come on, she's an American citizen, And so it's the gray area that's the problem. And the legislation does not speak to these areas. And now that you have more military that are younger and that are having children overseas, and it just makes it so hard to understand the red tape and to understand that, when your child turns 18, your child can decide whether they want to be a citizen of the country where they was born at or a U.S. citizen. So that whole legislation piece about that is so complicated. And people just assume that if you were born outside of the United States, that you're not a citizen. And that is something that they really need to work on. Now, 38 years old, and she's still going through those issues about her citizenship.
Well,
the language, it's all about the language in the legislation. And the language in the legislation has not been clear because you go to any state office, if you say your state of where you were born at is not in the United States, then it automatically opens a whole Pandora's box of how come you were born in another country and you're claiming citizenship. So it's a lot of people that don't understand that, and that is something that that's going to have to be dealt with because you can't. You're lumping. It's like they're lumping all of the immigration issues all together when you can't do that because there's certain. You have to put things in the category in which it needs to be put, and so that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is just lumping everything together and shaking the bag up, and whatever comes out, comes out. But it's not fair to the parents and the children that are in that situation to have to try to keep explaining to people that well, I was born here, and it's like if somebody says, okay, oh, I was born in Puerto Rico, or I was born in Italy, and they're like, well, okay, well, you're not an American citizen. That's the first thing that comes to the person, to whatever.
I don't believe that.
and that that this is what's happening, because there's a lot of government officials that don't know that.
I want to just say that you put that in really good words. I apologize for the little glitch right there. But the words that you are using are so specific to your experience as a military person. But if you're talking about a military person, someone who's already an illegal immigrant, and that comes into the military because of that program, and they bring in their children.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that's the argument, that when they bring in their children who are trying to kind of like backdooring the process, it sends a confusing message. So I think what we are talking about is getting it right for, sorry about that, getting it right for all concerned. So let's see about the children. My niece was born in Italy for my sister and her husband as military. They did, 20-something years. But their tour in Italy, they actually had children, I think probably in a couple of different states. And the little girl that was born in Italy, she said she always wanted to go back there. She finds that extremely sensationalizing when she says that she was born in Italy, which I can relate to that. But what I'm talking about is she had to be nationalized. She had to still apply for citizenship to gain that. They offered that. I think they offered that, Martina. I'm not sure how they do that. You know what I mean? But I think she was given the choice, or they made that decision for her before she was old enough. But I think that there should be some part of the process when they bring you back to the country when you have a child abroad.
Well, the thing about it is that when you have a child abroad, you still have to get a passport for that child to come back to the country. So it's like it's overlapping issues, and these overlapping issues do not make it clear on citizenship, because of the fact that if both parents are American citizens, then that child is an American citizen. But it's trying to go back through legislation and try to educate people about that. They're like, oh no. If they were not born on U.S. soil, then they're not a citizen. And there are so many children that are going through this issue, and because of all of the heightened awareness of everything that's going on, and along with the pandemic, there are people that's getting caught in between the legislation and different things, and people not understanding, because there are some people that have been deported that really shouldn't have been deported because they are American citizens, but because they can't prove that they have a passport, and then they'll say, well, you got this passport illegally. How in the world can you illegally get a passport when you're coming from one country to back to the United States? Your parents served in the military, so I think that the word and the languages that they use is not correct. And so it's causing a lot of frustration with the families, because, they just do what they're told. And so, and you have to get, and before, because like in my case, I had to get a passport for my daughter before I could leave Germany. So I could not even leave Germany without a passport.
Are you saying that they're deporting military children who were born out of the country? They're deporting Americans who have their children abroad?
If they cannot prove that they are American citizens, and it's like the truth test on whether you're American citizen, they don't even want to see it. Then here's the problem. The problem is that when they see a person of color, they just off the bat say that you're lying, because they feel as though that a person of color cannot live, outside of the United States. They don't even think about military. The military is not even in the atmosphere. They just think that, okay, if you're a person of color and you were born outside of the country, that you're just lying. So the way the legislation reads, see the issuing parties of the passports, So the way it goes is that when the military issues, because the military is who's issuing the passports for the children. They issue the passports. So that's a legal document. And also, when you travel with your children while out on active duty, your children are in those orders. So everybody if it's an accompanied tour, everybody that's accompanying you is in the orders for you to transfer. So knowing that and coming to somebody that doesn't know, somebody at the airport that doesn't know about this, and then they're detaining you because they're saying, oh, well, your passport. Now between a passport that is issued by the military versus a passport that's issued normally, because there's a stamp in that passport. So that's the difference. But anybody that does not know that will just assume that it's a fake passport.
Well, this is why this is so important. The title of our program is The Pathway to Citizenship from a Women Veterans Military Perspective. And it gives you that type of understanding that there are issues around who you are beyond a woman veteran. Yes. You have to deal with your child who was born in another country 38 years later. You know what I mean? So those complexities are necessary. The conversation about immigration is not just for immigrants. There is so many overlapping. You see what I'm saying? There are so many overlapping layers that when I got the invite, I reached into it right away because I knew I was a part of the immigration community for over 20 years, and I consider myself continue as long as I have a relationship with the person by whom I became a sponsor who was an immigrant. He was an illegal immigrant. He was into the country illegally, okay? But we married. It was a very good relationship. But I understood the dynamics of what needed to happen, that the process by which I was taking a sponsorship, a role as being somewhat the conduit to give this person a pathway to citizenship, that was a huge undertaking. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I met a lot of obstacles, but I represented to those courts on behalf of him because I believed in the process of the United States government, and I believed in the people that I was representing. They were a good family, these were good people, and I happened to become a part of that. So I just think that before people look at me as an African-American woman, an American citizen, a military woman, just know that there are those of us here that have multiple roles, you know what I mean, that parallel the immigrant community. You can't leave us out because the pathway is that you sometimes have to deal with the American citizen who may marry that immigrant. And now that we are learning that there are over 12 million illegal immigrants in the country, that pathway must be so clear. Say that it also must have language that talks about what about American citizens with children that are born outside of the country.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So you have people that came here illegally. I know your daughter's not here illegally, but to them, if she can't prove her citizenship, you know what I mean? You can't even vouch for her anymore because she's a full-grown adult.
Right.
So I can imagine her just trying to get a driver's license or a school record. It must be, my mother never got her birth certificate ever. She's been 87 years old. She's never received a birth certificate. One doesn't exist for her. So based on, back in the day when they used Bible records, they would use the Bible records, and still that tells a lot of the African-American history. So I'm just saying that we must continue to talk about this, Marcina. I just so appreciate that you bring your expertise and your knowledge into this conversation because it's relevant. It's important.
Yeah.
If we could get your daughter as a part of this conversation, well, look, I am an American citizen, but there are multiple roles in the conversation. Ethnicity, you see what I'm saying? We as women veterans who have parallel lives with the immigrant community, I've done many research. I have a grandson in the Philippines, born and raised there. I've never seen him. You see what I'm saying? How can I get to see my grandson? I will need a passport. The conversation is just not about immigrants, and this is mainly my message. The conversation about immigration is just not for immigrants alone. It is American citizens on the conversation, and we must be a part of it. But there must be a sensitivity there that we say, we understand understand the pain and the suffering it may cause because it's not automatic, but you cannot legislate compassion. You have to go through the process. I think in the process is where you may find all the challenges when you find all these overlapping and layers of difficulties where have not been dealt with. And this is why it's so confusing. They have never been dealt with. Immigration reform has never, ever been solved. You know what I mean? But I think this is a good time to get the conversation at another level. And I'm delighted that as my small, contribution, I can have someone with your experience. I think this is very important. You know, you at your age now have a daughter with German nativity. You know what I mean? That nativity is where she was born. She's a German. You know, it doesn't even matter that she lived in America all her life. But we have Germans here, okay, that were born in America. It's the same thing. How about that? It's the exact same thing. So we have to talk about those reverse roles and how we can articulate across the ethnic line and get into the military space. And I think this is what I'm going to continue to do, Martina. And I hope that you can share some of that expertise in your work with the Citizen Law project that you're working with, and bring some of that conversation into this space so that we can have our voice in this conversation. There is no one ethnicity. There is no one platform. Like you said, there's conflict because they want to distinguish it based on ethnicity or your location. It's not even about that. It's about inclusion. And we must be a part of that conversation. I just want to give you time to just talk about what is on your mind and bring any conversation in because it's being recorded. I want to share it. But this is just an opportunity for you that don't share public space too often. But when you do, I certainly like to grab as much knowledge as I can from you to see how we can just grow the conversation into different areas and make sure that we bring in as many people as possible to make sure that we are heard. This is something that you have been doing for over 30 years. Even though you're still looking real, real young, but, I'm just saying God has been good to us. But I just like to hear, just give us a little bit of what you may feel is a priority issue that may be helpful for any of our audience.
Well, today and today's time, a lot of the older veterans, the World War I, World War II, Vietnam veterans, they're older now. And so if you're privy to take care of your parents, that is a whole nother set of issues. Because I, being a veteran, is taking care of a veteran. And people look at me like, what? 2 veterans? And it's like, that's my father. And I'm his daughter. And we both serve differently. That does not take anything away from either one of us. But I think that the sensitivity to, in today's time, that we need to prepare and make sure that legislation is written and things are done to protect, because when we get that age and our children are taking care of us, then, they need help, because it is very difficult to navigate the VA system when you're talking about the elderly. And I run into a lot of issues. And I have to put on my street clothes in order to deal with it, because that's the only thing that they understand. And when I go there, they're like, why are you so angry? Because my thing is, I tell my father, you don't have to get angry about anything. You just stay calm. Let me be the hellraiser. Because they just want to do away with senior citizens. Just put them away in a corner and just leave, just don't even. But they have a right to health care. They have a right to things that they should get. And so it's just this whole piece of elder care that has never been dealt with. And the way they've been dealing with it is very shysty. And it is a shame that in America that you have service members that have served and they're treated worse than dogs. And if they don't have anyone to be that voice for them, they end up dying alone by themselves. And sometimes the frustration and the PTSD rolls in there, dementia rolls in there, and they lose their faculties. And the thing that I try to explain to people is that one day we all must cross this path. So if we try to make changes now, then when we get that age, we could rest a little easier. So that is something that I'm actually dealing with right now with elder care and how the VA is treating the elderly, how the VA is not properly giving the families the assistance that they need to help keep their loved ones in the home. But they'll be fast to put them in a nursing home, and so that's not right. That's not fair. That should be a choice of the family and the veteran, whether they go into long-term care. So it's a lot of things that need to happen, and it's just, people are just looking at you like, oh, well, I didn't understand this. I didn't realize. But we all get old. We all age. We're all going to get to that road.
I'm there, Francine. I'm there. I am there. I'll be 65. And so the thing is, let me just tell you, just to interject here, what's happened to me since I turned 62, physical abilities to mobilize and to ambulate. I am being, according to my age, put into these various programs. I'm kind of been aged out, despite my own desire to function as a very vibrant person, human being,
Right.
And so I just find that the VA has layers of consumerization where they consumerize us as commodities to some degree. And we have to identify with that. And one of the challenges that I find is that there is no transparency. So when you're being guided into these various programs, they're not only clandestine, as you suggested, when you can't really see what's going on and why you can't get an answer to your question. They have already prepared a place for you, so to speak. So they guide you into this. And so I spend most of my time rejecting these very surreptitious agendas by which I have no desire to participate. So I have a very supportive family, as do you. Your children would never see you in a nursing home, ever, okay? And neither would I, okay?
Right.
So when we talk about what powers we have, some of the challenges that I am very, very disturbed by is the lack of transparency in the VA. We don't know who the staff is. We do not know what programs are offered. And by the time we hear about it, they ended that last month. They ended that last year. Really? Oh, I didn't even know anything about it. So we are word of mouth. So we are each other's keepers, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I participate in so many discussions with the administration, whether it's local to Philadelphia and federal. They've just cut to New York and Philadelphia and D.C. So I understand that the Center for Women Veterans, their director, Jackie Hayes, has been replaced with somebody that she's trained, who I know is extremely incompetent. Okay, and so I know that also I just got the announcement today that the director for minority veterans was replaced, Stephen Dillard, who, most people don't even know about these people. You know what I mean? So my question is, why is the federal offices of these public servants who are getting paid by taxpayers so secretive? What is the secret?
Yeah.
There needs to be a directory. So when you Google or whatever you want to do and do a search on veterans care for seniors, where's the money and what type of support system is there, it should be one click.
Yeah.
That's my argument. Technology and capability in the staff is missing. They don't have the ability. There's a certain, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to use the word ignorance, but there's a certain ineptness. You know what I mean? And when you talk to them, they look at you with their head tilted, as though you're the one with the problem. Yeah. But I can assure you, it is not us. I have communicated all the way to the secretary. They have no idea what we're talking about, okay? So we're actually articulating at such a level. This is why that was so important on last week when we had that wonderful discussion. So we immediately got a request back to participate in the listening sessions. I want you to find yours in your neighborhood. I don't know if I can get the full list. This is how confusing it is. Rather than them be required to submit their listening sessions on the website with the Department of Veterans Affairs, they do their own local, the Veterans Affairs in your city, the Fayetteville one. They would have to kind of notify the people that's registered. You know what I mean? So I just find it ridiculous that we have to be searching out these platforms. But I got the information, and it was requested that our group, since we articulate, we are very educated, we are very experienced advocates who have overcome this. This is why we are able to talk about this without those who are just really dealing with this for the first time. I want you to consider your participation in this project because we're going to identify what are some of the healthcare practices that we believe. So I am going to ask this week through my response from that letter for us to identify, and then we're going to bring it all together, and I'm going to send it back to everyone to approve it, and we're going to all put our names in this thing. Hopefully we can do this in a week. We're also planning to have a follow-up discussion from last week because it was powerful. I really need you to see it. Amy Serpa actually is opening up a beautiful facility in, I'm not sure where her town is, somewhere near Temecula Park in California. Those individuals, we all sound like parakeets talking about the same experience. You know, we have gone through all the same thing, but it was just so powerful to see the love there. You know, I said, and I had a few conversations with some of the individuals afterwards. I said, there is no conflict in my current discussion. Everybody has already been vetted. You don't get to my conversation unless you can handle the love for another person. There is no arguments or things like that when we come to the table. We don't have that here because we can't afford to traumatize or re-traumatize other people. So there is no conflict, you know. But I had to ask one of my sister friends, I said, could you please not use so much profanity, you know. And so, you know, but she said, well, you just put me out. Oh, no, we're not putting anybody out. You're going to participate, and you're going to be respectful because there are people watching us. And we have to show that we can communicate that. So I said, don't get it twisted. I'm your friend. And she said, oh, thank you. Yes, I'm not the one that's going to throw you down the side. We're going to embrace you and love you and bring out that goodness because all of us bring so much power, knowledge, and experience that the VA has just taught us that we are not good people. We are not worthy, you know. So just to give her that kind of an opportunity, plus she's a certified veteran service officer. Why would I throw you out? You know what I mean? She's very knowledgeable, yes. And so I want her to have a conversation with us and try to give us the opportunity if we need to have benefits. She knows the benefits and claims very well. She's been certified recently, and I think she's looking to get her accreditation for the national level, and she's done that work. But they have kind of just abused her emotions that, you know, we just have to be the bigger, you know what I mean, to embrace some of that personality. I do it all the time. Just giving people a chance to work through. We are not here to offend you. We are here to let you know that we are working together with you, you know what I mean, to solve problems. There is no one turned away. But I just want to thank you, Martina. We have about 10 minutes. I am more than honored. I think you look just so grand. You just look so beautiful, and nobody would ever know what you've gone through. No one, and I'm not telling. You know, let your beauty speak for you because, you know, nobody knows the troubles that we both have seen, right? So as we continue to showcase this broadcast like this, maybe we can do this every week. I'd love to have you on, like, you know, maybe once a month because you just come off so your clarity is it's there. You're bringing out the part of me where it's not layered through anger. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You're touching my compassion. You're touching my soul, and that I have someone there that gets it. She survived it also. You know, I had to always defend myself to the legislators. I'm trying to get help. Why can't you help me? Blah, 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 blah. Help me, blah, 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 blah. You know, look to the hills. You know?
I learned early on about having those conflicts. Because I tell you, that one conflict that I had with Congressman Barney Franks, that was a doozy.
I suffered in your shadows. I know I did.
Valuable lesson.
It taught me as well.
You can agree to disagree. Do it without the cameras.
Yes.
Do it when the cameras are not on. Because when the cameras are on, you're going to see the falseness of people. when the cameras are off, you can really throw down. So I learned if I'm going to throw down with somebody, make sure the cameras are not on. That was
I learned 20 years later probably why I was getting somewhat the snowball of all of that in your shadows, but I handled it. The Lord brought me out. Okay, so listen, we just go consider that it's par for the course, you know.
Yes.
And I tell you, we're stronger as a result. So let's go. I call it Operation Rescue and Recovery, and we're going to just go rescue some of the others and let them know there is light at the end of the tunnel. So we're going into our last 5 minutes. And I just want to announce that on next month, for anyone who may get this tape, that if you register at www.nawbphilly.webs.com, you will find updates on our next meeting. We're working on a project to respond to the needs of women veterans and healthcare, and in how we can best set the tone for our treatment. And I think they have extended us that particular courtesy, long overdue, but certainly we are qualified and certainly become educated and empowered to do that, you know, if you would agree. If you want to make an announcement about Soldiers Breath, what you guys are doing, you know, I just think that it's worth noting that your work continues in your area. And if you just give us a little bit of announcement about where you project your next projects, and if you want to just talk a bit about that.
Well, our next project that we're going to be working on is a pageant for women over 50. And we're going to be soliciting for women from all branches of the service. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a pageant. And we're just having fun. We're just making people aware that we are women. We have served, and we are beautiful, and we are professional, and we got it going on.
And I thank you. Yes. We need that.
So, but right now, Breath of a Soldier is going through transition because now our headquarters is going to be here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So it's moving from Pennsylvania to here. And so I still have those connections with New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Yes,
so I'm still doing work as needed. And our whole purpose is to make sure that nobody is left behind. And so we're open to serve anyone that needs help. It's not because like I said, when I got out of the military, people came to my aid. They didn't ask me for no money. They didn't ask me for anything. They just did what I needed to be done for me to become healthy. And so that is what our intentions are with Breath of a Soldier, to walk beside the veteran and their family, to understand that, okay, you're going through this, but you're not alone. And so that is what our main thing is.
Thank you, Marcina Mungeon. You've been a wonderful example of survival and overcoming military trauma. A great mother, I can witness to that. A great leader, and I honor you. I honor you, and I recognize you for all of your service to our community. Very quietly, you have journeyed behind the scenes. But I continue to keep you up in prayer and certainly to lift you up as publicly as I can without you, because I know you're humble. I said, nobody can tell your story but me, you know, because you're so humble about really talking about the impact. And there has to be more around hashtag 10319. That hashtag 10319 must come forward. We are talking about the Harriet Tubman Women's Military Development Academy. Those words, in what order?
It's the Harriet Tubman Leadership Academy.
The Harriet Tubman Leadership Academy, where you will be guiding us into some very, very, I'm going to say, structured processes for advocacy and getting to beyond where we are. There is a process to this. This didn't just happen. So we can kind of outline some of those processes through the academy, and I hope that, you know, with your guidance, we are able to get to that point where we are established advocates despite what we're doing individually, but coming to a place where we can bring and educate and empower these young soldiers. It's Operation Rescue and Recovery is what I've been calling it, because they don't know what is ahead of them without us showing them. And I dare not see someone stumble in the 30 years that kind of guided the process. You don't have to learn on your way. Why don't you be guided through somebody else's footprints and, make your life easier? And I think that would be helpful for anybody's journey today. So I'm going to conclude our program this Saturday. Please have a wonderful rest of your day. To the audience, we thank you for watching us, and please share the video. We will be continuing with these discussions. It's going to be very important for us to be a part of it. There is no particular ethnicity or dialogue that is sought on these platforms. We're just looking for truth and just to make life easier for the next veteran. Leave no one behind is one of our mantras, and I hope that we continue to have these discussions and to get the respect that we got from our last week. Matter of fact, I just can tell you this, that the Director of Veterans Affairs was very, very supportive and communicating, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from some higher-ups on our discussion who will remain in office. And we want to continue to keep that collaboration so that we continue on with our conversation that opens the doors for others. Please have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining Women Veterans Speak, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on next week. Thank you very much.
All right.